How's it going, guys? Randall, aka Shizukats here, and welcome to my Granblue Fantasy Weiss Schwarz card reveal series. In this series, as you can imagine, I'm going to be taking a look at the reveals for Granblue Fantasy as they come out, and giving you guys my thoughts on what I think are going to be the strong, weak, interesting, flavorful, etc. cards that we see coming out of this set. Now, some of you guys that might not be in the Weiss Schwarz circles might not know what's going on. Let me give you guys a brief rundown on what exactly we're looking at here. Weiss Schwarz is a Japanese trading card game made by Japanese multimedia company Bushiroad, and the concept of the trading card game is they acquire licensing for various anime, manga, light novel, and video game titles and put them all into a single card game. You build a deck consisting of one singular title, for example, Granblue Fantasy, and then you play against other opponents whose decks will also consist of a singular title. I've been a longtime player of both Granblue Fantasy and Weiss Schwarz, playing both for over a decade at this point, so as you can imagine, I'm very excited for this crossover between the two. Now, I'm going to be going through all of the card reveals as they come out, so this is going to be a multi-part series, so be sure to check out all the other videos and keep on the lookout for some cards of your favorite characters. But for now, let's get into the reveals. Okay, so getting into the reveals, we have 6 initial reveals for the set, which are going to be the SSP rarity cards. This is the highest possible rarity outside of the AGR, which is the Lyria hand sign, which we don't know anything about that yet, other than that it is Lyria and it is going to have Naotoyama's hand signature. So we have these 6 SSPs. All of these cards are going to feature brand new art that was illustrated specifically for the Weiss Schwarz set, and those cards are going to be Sandalphon, Belial, Galleon, Siete, Nier, and Zeta. Now, as far as the order that we're going to be taking a look at these cards, and I actually want to start with the general cards, the ones that could go into pretty much any deck and are like the non-climax combo cards. So we're going to start with Belial. Belial is one of the cards that, out of this reveal of 6, I think is just easily going to be the strongest and most widely used. It is an extremely strong level 0 utility card. So during your turn, this gets 2k power on top of a base 500. And then when this is placed on stage from hand, you can pay 1 and clock the top card of your deck in order to search your deck for you can either search your deck for a level 1 or lower character, so Ricky, or you can salvage any Granblue trait character from your waiting room, and in addition, he gets plus 1000 power until end of turn. So this card is extremely strong, either acting as a search Ricky or a trait-based salvage Ricky. So this card doesn't even lock the salvage Ricky portion to level 1 or lower, like the search part. This is going to make it just extremely useful at all stages of the game. You can use the salvage Ricky to just get things like your level 3 combo or anything you want in the late game. Slight downside of the card is that it does clock from the top of your deck rather than clocking from waiting room, but given that the flexibility of the card is extremely strong, this is more than a fair price to pay. I definitely expect the base R version of Belial to be like a 1500 to 2000 yen card on release. I expect pretty much everybody to be looking to get at least 3, if not 4 copies of this into every single deck that you play. And it's just definitely a very universally usable card. Next up, we have Galleon, who is going to be another powerful level 0 utility card that can go into pretty much any deck. So this is going to be the main tap self salvage brainstorm of the set. Just has the usual tap self salvage brainstorm 4. But this one has hexproof, which obviously gives it just some nice usefulness against certain decks that like to snipe back row, such as Kaiju number 8. But more importantly, this has a very interesting middle effect. Once per turn, while you are at level 2 or higher and you hit brainstorm, you actually have to hit the brainstorm, you have to hit a climax. You can pay 1 and send Galleon to the bottom of your deck to chuck a rock at your opponent for 1 damage. So this is a really, really nice way to just add incidental damage to your finisher turn, or even in the end, even in the mid game, since you just have to be level 2 or higher. If you're able to like get another copy of Galleon through some sort of card effect, or even just off the brainstorm, you can just use this Galleon's effect, deal 1 burn damage to your opponent, and then immediately replace her with a new copy of Galleon. Or if it's on your finisher turn, you just use her as part of your Hail Mary at the end. Very, very strong card, and It is pretty much just universally usable. I don't imagine it's going to be super easy to print another Brainstorm within the same set that will see more widespread use than this, unless it has like a really absurd secondary utility ability alongside the Brainstorm. So I would estimate that this Galleon is probably going to be anywhere from like 1280 to 1500 yen on release per copy, and I expect most decks to be playing 2 to 3 copies of this card. We're going to skip down past... Actually, no. Everything else is Climax Combo. So for the Climax Combo cards, I want to go in order of 1 to 2 to 3. So we're going to start with the Zeta level 1 combo. And this is where the colors are going to start coming into play. The Belial is a red card, fits Belial. Galleon is a yellow card, just kind of fits her whole dirt motif. And we're going to get into Zeta, who, as we all know, is a fire character, and so I think red very fitting here. So the Zeta level 1 combo is probably going to be on a comeback trigger, I imagine. This doesn't seem like a standby effect to me. Her first effect, this ability activates up to once per turn. When you use an act ability, this turn this gets plus 3000 power. Currently, the only act ability, like back row, that we have seen is the Galleon Brainstorm. So we don't have a whole lot to go on, but I imagine that within like the Society deck, there will probably be a back row character, maybe an Ilsa is what I'm predicting, that will have an act ability that doesn't cost any stock, just probably rest herself in order to maybe give a power boost or something like that. That will allow you to easily activate Zeta's ability and gain that extra power. So this will allow her to go up to 7,000 before Climax. If she is on a comeback like I'm predicting, then she will be going up to 8k on offense, which is a very solid offensive number. Her Climax combo says when this attacks, if you have 3 or more other Granblue characters, you can mill up to 3 and then choose up to one level X or lower Granblue character from your waiting room and salvage it. And X is equal to the number of Granblue characters sent to waiting room by this effect. This is the Twilight Innocence effect that is very, very powerful and is probably just one of the best level 1 combo texts of all time at this point. Just giving you the middle ground between selective deck speed and selectivity from the salvage is just a really powerful Climax combo overall. And additionally, you get to choose one of your opponent's front row characters and give it minus 500 power for the turn. This is basically just going to turn this card into like an 8500 attacker a lot of the time. You can choose any character in your opponent's front row, so if you want to stack multiple Zetas onto a single opposing character, you can do that as well. And you could also use this to snipe low power characters like little 500 and 1k power characters off the board entirely and maybe deny your opponent from using a powerful effect like a JC. So yeah, I'm pretty enthusiastic about this Zeta so far. It's a very just open-ended card. This could go into a myriad of different finisher options due to not requiring any special mechanics like experience. So yeah, just very open-ended card overall, and quite good. I will also note that funnily the once per turn of this card is it's the old once per turn. So I just found that interesting. The next card we're going to look at is the level 2 Sandalphon, which is probably going to be on a choice combo. This is a 2/0 3k with a Soul Trigger. During your turn, this gets plus 6,000 power, so it brings up to 9k on offense with without Climax and 10k with, so he'll be able to contest most things pretty easily. Climax combo says when this attacks, if you have probably the choice Climax in the Climax area, and all of your characters are Granblue trait, playing the game, choose up to one Granblue character in your waiting room and salvage it. Then you can choose up to one copy of himself or some unknown Lucifer card that we haven't seen yet from your waiting room and send it to memory. And while this card is in memory, when your unknown Sandalphon, some other Sandalphon card attacks, you can put this card from memory underneath that Sandalphon face up as a marker. Now, the other Sandalphon that we don't know about yet is going to be the 12 White Wings Sandalphon. As we can see in the name of the card, it does have like the 12 wings. And I imagine that by putting this card from memory underneath him as a marker, you are going to be able to unlock the full potential of probably a finisher effect. So obviously we can't evaluate this card completely at the moment, as we don't know what that Sandalphon does, and we also don't know what that Lucifer does. But just looking at this card in a vacuum, I do think it's interesting that this card has to marker copies of itself. This does mean that you don't necessarily want to be tri-fielding this at level 2, because then it'll be hard to actually have copies of this card in your waiting room to send to memory, because the max number of copies you can run in a deck is 4. So in that case, you might want to be sending the Lucifer instead, or you might just want to not tri-field this combo, maybe go for 2 copies on the board, 2 copies in waiting room, so you can send those two to memory. So yeah, not a whole lot that we can look at the moment for this card, unfortunately. So we'll have to come back to this one at a later date to fully evaluate it. I will be sure to revisit this card once we know what the unknown Sandalphon and Lucifer cards are. Moving down the list, we have the level 3 Siete, or Seiphon. So this is a card that a lot of my friends are quite afraid of, because this is some kind of uncharted territory in terms of sort of like the finisher options that Weiss Schwarz as a whole has presented. So 3-2 Seiphon, 9,500 power. I feel like a lot of the time that's not going to matter given what this card does. When this is placed on stage from hand, you can choose up to 1 copy of his Climax from your waiting room, and it's probably going to be Treasure, I imagine. And you can either add it to your hand or you can send it to stock. A lot of the time you're going to be adding it to your hand in order to make use of his next effect. Once per turn, when you use an act ability during your own turn, and you have 3 or more other Granblue traded characters, you can discard 1 copy of his Climax and 1 other card in order to deal 3 damage to your opponent. And with his third ability, which is once per turn, act, put the top card of your deck into clock to draw a card, you basically pay for the entire cost by himself. On play, he's going to be salvaging a copy of his Climax, and then using the act ability, you can hit yourself for 1 damage in order to draw the other card, and then you can discard those 2 in order to deal 3 damage to your opponent. This is all being done in main phase, which means that you can still rearrange your board and set up actual Climax combo finishers outside of that. So the theory that we have behind this card so far is that he would fit best into a deck where you can assemble a finisher lineup that does not use a lot of stock, because you will want to be spending your stock on multiple copies of Siete. So if they come out with a finisher combo that is like a free summon, so you could just play the first copy, which summons the second, which summons the third, and you can do all that with just like 2 stock, it would be extremely powerful for this finisher and would allow you to resolve many burn 3s within a single turn. The act ability of clocking yourself is also going to activate his own second ability to deal 3 damage, so you don't even need to use an outside ability like a Brainstorm or a tap ability or things like that. So this is just a card that ultimately is going to rely on what other finishers that we see in the set. You do not need to run this card as your sole like level 3 finisher card. You can basically just run 1 or 2 copies of his Climax alongside an actual level 3 finisher and look to spam Sietes into your normal finisher combo as your endgame package. So very strong card, a lot of potential. We're going to need to see what comes out in order to really contextualize what our endgame lineup is going to be running this card. Our final card that we're going to be looking at is Nier, and she has no on-play ability. Instead, she is going to be reviving herself from waiting room with her first effect. So while this is in your waiting room and you are at level 3 or higher and all of your characters are Granblue, at the start of your Climax phase, you can pay 2 stock, discard 1 card in order to summon this card from your waiting room to an empty slot. This is basically just the cost that you would be using to hard play Nier from your hand anyway. It's just she's not in your hand and you're just discarding some random card. This does mean that you don't have to sculpt for the card, but it does mean that they are going to have to find their way into your waiting room somehow if you want to make use of this effect. Her Climax combo is probably going to be with Gate. On attack, you can pay 1, and until the end of the opponent's next turn, during this card's battle, you do not take damage from the auto effects of your opponent's character, so anti-burn, really nice text. And then you can heal up to 2 damage, or you can deal 4 damage to your opponent. So this can be a really strong card if you find yourself getting hit to level 3 first, as you can bring this card out from your waiting room, use the combo to heal down, and then also have the anti-burn to prevent your opponent from killing you as easily from 3-0. I'm assuming you heal yourself down to 3-0 with the combo. And then you will probably want some sort of large assist in order to make sure that this Nier stays alive through your opponent's turn. Not only stays alive swinging in so that you can actually use the anti-burn during your opponent's turn, but you also want Nier to be large when your opponent is swinging back at you so that she can live and then go for the burn combo on the next turn, potentially, if she lives. Obviously, if she dies, you can summon her back out using her effect, pay 2, discard 1, but that does require using even more stock. That if you can just put an assist in the back row that allows Nier to stay alive, then that is more ideal than having to re-summon her out. So yeah, I think similar to other climax combo finishers with anti-burn attached to them, such as Natsu from Fairy Tail or Gaunt Knight from Eminence and Shadow, I think you are very okay with going to level 3 first when playing Nier. And you just want to have her be as big as possible to live through the opponent's turn cycle, and then after you've healed down and your opponent fails to kill you, then you go for the burn damage. That's what I think this card is going to be mainly used for. So that is going to do it for our initial reveals. We have 2 very strong universal level 0 utility cards and some pretty promising climax combos. Looking forward to what we see out of the future reveals, although it might be a while. Usually this initial set of reveals comes out a couple weeks before we actually start the regular reveal season, so stay tuned for when those reveals do eventually come out. Until then, this has been Randall, aka Shizukats, and I hope to see you guys on future reveal sessions. Until next time, bye.